Oh yeah, vampire staking it up.
What you want to be most careful about with chainsaws is any kind of kickback. And what you want to worry about with that is the tip of your chain getting caught. For instance, if I was to plunge like this, I would have a lot more danger of it kicking up because this is encountering the material. But if you have a looseness in your body, you want to pay attention to your stance and make sure you have a lot of movement so you're able to move with the tool, drop down to the height of the bar that we just sort of looked at. And then I would actually flip this bale up and do the down cut. You can also turn and go like this. It depends on what you're most comfortable with. So now that I've gone all the way across and kind of set my line, then I check my depth, and then we'll flip up and we'll drop down and complete that notch. Okay? So the saw is going to want to go to the path of least resistance. It's going to want to kind of head this way rather than going into on a nice 90. So even if you hold it straight on a 90, there's so much less resistance to the left that the saw is actually going to sort of go like bend like that. So you want it to get a nice 90 degree. You want to actually cheat it a little bit in to be able to really get that angle back there to get a nice 90 degree cut.
Safety connection here.
It would be really hard to go through this with the chainsaw. All right. So now you're fastened to the bale below. You're not going to tip over or less likely to.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, you could do that, but then you'd be able to less.
Are we flush with this plane
Yeah,
all the way
except
down?
for that one.
The part way at the bottom?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, it's flush.
Like, tell me in this direction.
Yeah,
it's
that's flush.
Yeah. Okay. It could just be a slightly big bale. But this is how you adjust things. I think we need to figure out how to tow this bale into the framing.
Should we get this one in first and see how it wedges and then?
Yeah. Well, I think regardless of how it wedges, we'll still want to fasten it. But maybe you want to get that set and then fasten that. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Vampire stake in through here and then tow it in?
If you can. Like I was saying earlier, I think it's going to be really hard to wedge a vampire stake in this direction of straw because it's just going to hit the sheet of straw rather than that direction where you can go in between the flakes. So I think you're going to end up needing to make, like I was saying, those washers to be able to hold a screw.
Okay.
So one of the other things that we attend to very carefully on our buildings is attending to the corners. We want the corners of the building, if they are going to be finished in plaster, which most often they are. They look really beautiful when they're done that way. They're quite durable if done correctly and if applied right. We brick our corners, which means that if you think of the bales as almost masonry blocks, similar to bricks, we stack them so that the seams are staggered, just as you would masonry of any kind, masonry block-like materials. So here you can see the orientation of this bale is that the end of the bale is protruding towards us, whereas on the next course, the end of the bale is coming in this direction. So they are crossing each time on the corner, bricking the corners, we say. So that's one thing that creates a very strong corner, is that process of staggering the seams and staggering the directions. So we look at that. We also look at making sure to plumb up very nicely from the corners so that you may have seen on some straw bales, there are corners that end up traveling quite a bit like this. And that look is sometimes not as aesthetically pleasing, to me at least, as a nice clean corner, which can still be sculptural and still be round and beautiful, but looks like it was very well engineered and executed. There are many ways to connect bales on a corner to the frame to make sure that that's held in really nice and tight. we connect all of our straw bales to our timber frame and also to our exterior window and door framing. That makes sure that every bale is locked in and tightened to the frame and held really nice and tight and strong. Provides a good tooth for the plaster and just a good wall system, nice and solid. So here what we're seeing is a technique that we've called vampire stakes. It's our nickname for it. We're basically taking a piece of 1x2 material, cutting it to 16 inches and putting a point on it on the chop saw. So what that does is we're able to drive it just like a stake into the bale that we have just set. We've pre-drilled for a timber lock screw, and we're able to, once we drive that in, suck that timber lock and pull that bale nice and tight into the back of the timber frame. Then we also have some protruding out of the top, and we're able to then drop the bale on top of that, spear it onto that same stake. So what we're providing for are these pins, these locks between the courses of the bale so that they are locked together and also locked to the frame. You use these vampire stakes to pull that whole corner in. And what I really like about this system is a lot of systems that are corner tie systems utilize metal in some way, either by timber locking all the way through a bale into the corner. And it is really solid. There's something really nice about that connection all the way through a whole bale. It's just really, really strong. But it creates such a thermal bridge from the inside to the outside and points of condensation all through the bale that it's a real concern for creating a rot point in the wall.
There are a number of different ways to treat window and door openings coming to a straw bale wall. One of our favorite ways is to give a nice curved reveal to the edges of the windows. And it serves a couple of purposes. One, it accentuates the thickness of the wall by giving us an element of depth that we can play with. A second benefit is that it accentuates the amount of light that can come into a room. If the bales were to come straight off the plane of the window, it would cut the amount of light that is able to pass by the edge of that wall and come into the room. So we are going to bevel those bale edges now that they are well tightly installed around our window and door rough openings. We use a number of different tools to do this. We start by using an electric chainsaw to rough out the edges of the curve, pretty much to cut the tip off the outside corner of the bales. And now we're going to use an electric grinder fitted with a Lancelot blade, which is like a chainsaw blade. And that is a little more precise of a tool we can use to get the accuracy of the curved reveal that we are looking for. We are trying to approximate the curve that has begun the overhead of our windows that was formed by these baskets of wire lath and straw bales that were pre-curved that are then fit into this wire lath mold. We have a pretty rough jig that we made just to give us a baseline as we're grinding to get a consistency in our curved reveal. To ensure that once the plaster goes on, we have a nice uniform curve on the base of our bales to which we can get a nice even reveal around our window frame and where the trim will come in. Let's check the template and get an idea of how we're doing. It's looking pretty good. Looks like we can take out a little more right from the nose of the curve there, and I think you're on the right track of pulling out some more material there, but we probably don't need to pull anything out of that face. So.
All right, so right now we're putting the finishing touches on these windows here. As you can see, we've kind of notched out. What's the great thing about bales, you can kind of just notch out for any kind of wood support that you add in afterwards. But we're kind of adding some extra support for these window details. Just handcrafted these little wooden sills, and we're gonna actually put in a finished wood sill for these windows up here, here, and here, just to make it a really nice space.